I also waited until we had something vaguely interesting to do. We're going to make some more monsters. So in Airships 9.4, which is currently in beta on Steam, I was working on like user interface issues like having a build queue and stuff like that. And now with 9.5, the idea is to just put in some more monsters. Because I did the monster update version 9 originally, and it took a really long time to make. It took a lot more programming to get all of that working than I thought it would. And so by the time it was finally ready, I sort of pushed it out of the door without using the code that I'd made all that much. Like I wrote this whole wonderful code for making tentacles, and then I used it in like 2 places. So the idea with 9.5 is just to go and, add a bit more content, essentially. Ideally avoid writing any actual code at all. Okay, so yeah, first thing I want to make is an aerial jelly, so another tentacle thing. The idea here is to basically make a Portuguese man of war. One mild problem is I don't know what to call this thing because it's not like Portugal exists in this setting, right? Mildly awkward. But yeah, that thing. That's actually a pretty good image. So I need an image to copy from. It's very important. Never do by hand what you can copy. There we go. The stock photo, that doesn't exactly matter, because we're not gonna, use the photo as such. We're just gonna use it as the baseline. It's very pretty. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Okay. Any weird sounds you're hearing, by the way, generally blame them on the cats. We have our beloved cat Dexter here right now. He's currently in a cone because he kept on scratching his ear. And of course, weird things are happening, so he's dealing with that by bumping against everything with his cone. So those clank clank sounds you're hearing are a cat cone. Okay. So the various monsters are already in various sprite sheets. So let's just grab like this one, which is the one for dead squid and some weird thing, which I don't know what it is. Okay. So we start up by just resetting that quickly. Should probably have a default version of that, but this was slightly faster. So this is the bump map, yeah. And then we have the sprite sheet. Bonk. And we have the underlying grid. Yeah, the cone thing, he actually had a floppy one first, and then what happened was that really flexible, and he managed to kind of reach past the floppy cone and keep on scratching himself. So now he's got like a really proper cartoonish kind of plastic cone thing, and he hates it, of course, but that's what he gets. Hi, Sir Duffy. Welcome to the channel. We make monsters here. Monstrous monsters. Okay. Yes. Yeah, that's probably about the right size. So just going to copy this into a new layer. Like that. Make that layer semi-transparent. Oh, and the other thing that we want is the color scheme, which I'm sort of trying to stick to. So one mild problem, of course, is that actual Portuguese mans o' war are transparent, which doesn't work. So they're just going to have some kind of color instead. I guess making them suspendium colored would make some modicum of sense, or like skin colored or something like that. Yeah, let's make them suspendium colored. If they're like almost entirely translucent but there's suspendium in them, then that would make some amount of sense. Let's just save this as a new monster sheet. Get out our friend, the graphics tablet. I have a very old but nice and big Wacom tablet. So it has none of the modern fancy features, but it still works, and it's nice and big. Okay. The step one is really just copying the shape of this. What is it? Yes, it is an Intuos 3 indeed. Yeah, it's a bit unclear what's going to happen with all of this stuff. I mean, one answer is tentacles. I will use the tentacle stuff. But there's really a whole bunch of things here which I'm not quite sure how it should get modeled. Mostly because, yeah. So I'm tempted to sort the... Oops. Yeah. Create this sort of bumpy sack. So the idea with this monster is it's going to be a bit similar to the giant kraken. So it's another tentacle thing that's going to turn up in the sky and eat your crew. Compared to the kraken, the idea is that it's probably going to be not quite as dangerous. It's a bit smaller. It doesn't have tough skin at all, so you can shoot it to bits pretty quickly. But I want to see just how many tentacles I can put in without there being some kind of performance or other problem. So it's going to have a lot more tentacles. So it's basically going to eat your crew a lot faster than the giant kraken does. But it's also going to be easier to kill. That's the vague idea. There we go. So now we have this incredibly highly advanced graphical thing here. It's a blob. Amazing. So you might be wondering a little bit, well, David, this is going to look terrible. But the actual trick here is that most of it, as usual with art stuff, is going to come from the lighting rather than from the base color. So let's switch over to the lighting. So one thing is the shininess factor. Now I think in this case we want a very, very high shininess factor. Actually, I don't have this is a mistake on my part. There really should be a table of shininesses as well, but I don't have that. So I'm just going to have to grab something. So this is very shiny, this blue. And we can apply it to, well, basically the whole thing. Yeah. One of the nice things about these masks is that it doesn't matter, because it uses the transparency of the main image and not of the mask. It doesn't really matter if we're being sort of sloppy about the borders. I'm thinking like the shininess becomes a bit less around here. That will give it a slightly different feel as well. There we go. Let's make that a bit more high frequency. Can't super see what I'm doing here, to be honest, but hopefully it will give a decent result. Okay, so that's the shininess. We can get rid of that for now. Now we have the horizontal and the vertical bump map, or basically the vector in which it's pointing. So we can start out with, let's say, for example, stuff from the left. So everything that's pointing a little bit left, at least, should be lit up. Just going to be certainly, oops, use the right channel, David. There. Certainly going to be everything here, of course. In fact, a bit more here. Here it gets quite flat, so it's not going to have that much of that actually in there. But here it gets a bit bigger. And then here, that's actually quite a big blob that's sort of growing out of the bottom. Lovely language. Blobs growing out the bottoms. So we're going to give that quite a bit, but again we're going to make it kind of uneven on purpose because it's got this very uneven shape. And we want to preserve that. The next thing is that you can see here that actually there's sort of a root coming out, so we want to have that. Root. Yes, we'll make that join up here. It's probably okay. And then indeed again here and here and here a bit less, but here's quite a lot. So yeah, now we're really describing the shape of this thing. It's all looking quite garish, but the garishness is actually just there so it's easier for us to figure out where stuff is. It's going to be a lot more subtle in the final result, at least somewhat more subtle. Is it going to glow? Oh, it should actually. Yeah, I wonder how. It might be a performance issue again. Like I have to see how big a glow radius I can give it without causing horrible problems with the light engine. But I think it should. Oh, and the glowing should probably pulsate, and I shouldn't say that because making the glow pulsate will require writing new code, but hey. So I think there's more bits that need to be. Yeah, absolutely. It's not worth trying to make it pulsate only to find out that actually that causes horrible performance problem already with the size of the glow. But actually it might be fine. I mean, it's only going to be, well, like it's only going to be one texture that gets drawn in addition. It's going to touch a lot more pixels, but it's only one draw. So might actually not be that that bad in terms of graphics performance. So these are the super lit up bits. Okay, so that's the lighting from the left on. I think it might look quite good. We'll see. the lighting from the right. Again, I'm not sure which way forwards actually, so I'm just guessing that thing swims pointy end first, but actually it might be swimming the other way. I don't know, I've never seen one live. Oh well. So now we basically do the exact reverse, where we take all the bits that are pointing right and we paint them in. Like that. Oh well, we might have made it point the wrong direction. I mean, you can use some graphic tomfoolery related to flip it if necessary. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, then the really pointing right bits. That. Let's just make this smaller. I mean, I could zoom in, of course, but I'm kind of not zooming in on purpose because I know that if I zoom in the one level, I'm gonna start fiddling with the details too much, and then it takes forever. So yeah. Okay. So I think that's everything done on the horizontal axis. Now we just need to do the exact same thing on the vertical axis. So let's just get rid of that. Start grabbing colors from here. So I had that set to 9. I'll go back to that. Okay, so what's lit from the top? Those are sort of a tricky question, actually. Arguably, a lot of this is like basically all of this stuff is lit from the top. So let's just grab it all at once. And then here again, certainly the upper bits of this blob are and yeah, this can probably connect up, bit more around the side, bit more here. Yeah. Then I think there's some bits in here which actually aren't very much lit up from the side, from the top. So we'll grab these off again. Like here, these bits I think aren't really. Yeah, it looks pretty accurate. Yeah. Cool. So now the next thing is strongly from top lighting. So this is really stuff that's pretty much pointing straight up. Oh, actually I think here, let's have a bit more here. Yep. So in a lot of cases, including this one, this sort of means rim lighting type thing. Just the very top of it. Might be tempted to, yeah, like here and here. Yeah, and there's very specific sort of places. I think it's pretty much pointing straight up. There. And then down here, again, I'm not so sure because it's sort of growing out of here. I think it never quite reaches that, but yeah, maybe there. The great thing about this sort of lighting thing is that if in doubt, just make it less clean. With like, especially anything sort of weird, flubly organic shaped, well, it shouldn't have clean. It's not a smooth surface anyway, so it might as well give it uneven lighting, because that's what it would have. That actually makes your job easier. Okay, so that's done. Now from below. And once we've got that, we can actually start typing some stuff in and just make that thing appear without any of the tentacles or any of the stuff. Or we can make that thing appear just as a module and see whether it renders correctly. So there with those details, I'm going to have to zoom in to actually get the transitions right. But here, here it's pretty easy. Yeah, that will do. If necessary, you can come back and clean that up more, but laziness, I mean efficiency, you know, is key. Okay, and then yeah, the final bit, which is the very looking downwards bit. There's none here at the top part at all, but there's just down here, of course. The very bottom of this lump. Okay, and that's actually the real basics done of this. So let's put all the sprite bits on top of each other again. Well, does it look completely implausible? Okay, that has to go. That has to go. Right, so there, that's the actual sprite sheet. It's just a blob. Yes, it's an Portuguese man of war. One of them. This thing. Just, you know, big and out to kill and eat you. I know it's like a colony organism, I think, like a jellyfish, more like. Yeah. So yeah, we have monsters5.png. And we have monsters5 underscore bump .png. Now at some point we'll also need to do the fragments, but for when it dies. But we'll just ignore that for now. Good stuff. Okay. So now we should be able to pretty much just add this thing in by editing the data files. So first off, we need to add a new sprite sheet bundle, which is monsters5. It doesn't have a fragments map yet. And actually I think it might get really confused if it doesn't have one. So I'm just going to export the blank picture. Ta-da! It's the fragment sheet. Okay. Now the other thing that we need is a module type. And there we're just going to grab the giant squid. I'm going to just call this thing jelly. Right. For now, we just want it available in the basic category and not require anything. And a lot of these things are already set, which is pretty handy. A lot of this stuff can be a lot simpler. Because it's not animated, unlike the squid. So we don't need to specify multiple frames or anything like that. It also currently doesn't have any damaged external or destroyed external appearances or emitters or blah, 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 blah. So you're just going to get rid of all of this. Yeah, we might as well give it squid skin. We're going to give it rather less hit points, like half. Yeah, it can die in a similar way so far. It has a really, really slow propulsion. It's about half as dangerous as a squid. Yeah, and we're just going to remove the tentacles for now. We'll add them back in later. But right now, no such thing as tentacles. Okay. So now we need to figure out how big it is. So one admittedly really bad limitation of the way the game works is that modules have to be rectangular for reasons. Because that made placement and collision detection easier. But that means that now I have to sort of treat this as a rectangular object, which is actually going to be kind of semi-impossible. Oops. So what we're going to do is we're just going to say only, for now we're just going to say only the central mass here. is actually collidable with. And that will sort of save our bacon in a half-assed fashion. I might do something more clever later. Okay, so the core of it is 80 times 48 pixels. No, the position is 80, 48. That seems more likely, so that's 5. Yes, I can do this arithmetic, but that would require bothering, and if I use the calculator, I don't get it wrong. So x5, y we said was 48. Now that's 3, I can see that with my eyes. The width is 192. Quick class, what's 192 divided by 16? I'm waiting.
12.
12? On the back. Yes, it's 12. Thank you, Ray. Then 19 down, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now we put the external appearance on top of it. So that's the non-collidable bit. That's actually the whole image. So now we just need the bounding box for what we actually drew, which of course we drew in a kind of a messy way. But hey, okay. Sort of kind of something like this. So 16, 0. Okay. So that's a position x1. No. Right here. x1. y0, which means that relative to what we had, it's at -4 and -3. Because we need to shift it now relative to this. So what I tend to do a lot, what I did with the squid and what I might do here too, is that actually the image for the sort of inside, the not external image, are actually used for like the internal organs, and then these can sort of fall out and splatter across the screen when it dies. I'm not sure how noticeable that is with the squid. I hope it is, because I spent a bunch of time on it. The squid has reasonably accurate internal squid anatomy. You know, how many games can you say that about? That the squid are anatomically correct, right? So yeah, we might do a similar thing here. So I'm not sure if there's anything really, so I might just make some stuff up. Right, then 43 and height okay 368 23. Okay, so now purely in theory that works. Purely in theory that creates us a new module called Jelly that looks like that. There may be some mild mistakes. Oh, and if you want to be able to see it, you also need to run this thing. So you might know this annoying thing that happens when you create a mod and load it in for the first place. Yeah. Thanks for telling me. Yeah. Right. Again. Bonk. So when you create a mod, it will then spend ages going on calculating stuff, and what it's doing is that it's creating the non-lit versions of all of the pictures. And the reason why that exists is, one, because sometimes there is no lighting source, like in the ship editor, and two, it means that the game can actually sort of run on an incredibly basic forms of OpenGL that don't require shaders. Because it's essentially got the shading bit of the shaders pre-shaded. I don't know if that was actually worth doing. I have this distinct feeling that it's a lot of trouble for something like 1% of users use, but hey, we live and learn. Oh, sometimes we just die horribly. Yes. Ugh. Okay, now we're having a mild problem with the IDE hating us. And put on some elevator music. Okay. Now we wait here for a little bit longer, looking at output. So yes, more monsters. I guess it would make sense to see if I can get this update out for Halloween, right? That would be like the traditional thing to do, I guess. We'll see if I can hit that. So I have a to-do list somewhere. Here's some stuff which I want to do. I don't know if you can read that. It's the modern internet, you know. Instead of just sending you this text, which is like several bytes long, I'm live streaming the text in a large font so you can read it. Very efficient. So a land anemone is a bit like the aerial jelly, only really big, and a building with tentacles. That was sort of the idea, the new thing. It's a building with tentacles. Which means the tentacles will have to be really big. Just another one of those things where I have to check if that will even work properly. Then cultists, which I think I've, vaguely hinted at for a while now. So people with funny hats that like do inadvisable things with altars. Turtle doves, which, there's been a picture of those around for a long time. And they've been flying around in the background for years. And then nest upgrading, where the idea is that if you have a monster nest, that's anything like a dragon nest or pirate hideout or something, then eventually, if you just leave it alone to grow, it will sort of become a bigger version of itself. So the idea is that if you have like a brigand nest, eventually they'll turn into pirates. Or if you have pirates, then eventually they'll like declare themselves pirate kings, and there's a sort of sudden increases in dangerousness, which ideally you want to not happen. And you can probably imagine that cultists can also have sudden increases in dangerousness. So that's sort of the idea. So it's going to be a little bit of code in this update, basically for the nest upgrading, and for the random encounters. I'll have to see about them because I don't want to make them annoying. I don't want to give you the feeling of like, hey, I was doing really well. I was sending this fleet over there and I was going to win, but then it all got eaten by something. So I have to figure out how to do that. But that's basically what I want to put in before then embarking on Dev 10. Yes, indeed, and the anemone should have correct enemy anemone anatomy. Quite. Let's see. It's still working. Yeah, there's some other things which I might try as well. One thing which I really want to put in, but it might not make the cut, is giant owls. I have this whole spiel that I think that like giant owls would be basically scarier than dragons. Because the thing is, dragons are okay. I mean, they're big, they're sort of fiery and lizardy and all that. but you're not really going to miss them. I mean, they're sort of, dragon turns up and starts setting things on fire and screams or something. An owl, on the other hand, is like a nocturnal ambush hunter. So imagine an owl the size of a house, that's just the size that you're like the size of a mouse to it. So with a giant owl, the problem isn't that it turns up and it lays waste to your city or something and has to be fought off by a heroic knight. It's that people just vanish. It's that you go out in the evening and whoops, the owl swoops in completely silent, comes down, and in one motion picks you up, breaks your neck before you can even scream, carries you up to its little owl babies. It does that a few times a night. So the idea is that, when that happens, eventually you have to send in the fleet and fight this owl before it eats everyone. The main issues here are actually its attack move, because it would swoop in and grab someone. So that's a different attack move from the types of attack which you already have, which are tentacles grabbing something, or just stuff shooting, or stuff boarding, or whatever. The owl would have to basically fly over, like almost through your ship, basically, and grab someone. And of course, they can be done, they can be programmed, but it would need specific code to do that. So I'll see. I really want it, but it might not make it, or I might add it some other time. I'll see. Okay, has this finally finished? No, it has not. So in other random news, as you are probably aware for now, there's an Airships Discord now, which is actually going really well, I think. We have quite a lot of people, and it's quite a lot of conversations and so on. There's also a cute little bot now, which I'm still debugging, but the idea is that it tells you about multiplayer hours and things like that. And it tells you trivia. So if you poke it, it tells you random factoids about the world. And I'll be adding more of those over time as I come up with them. I think my favorite one so far is if the biscuit floats, it's safe to eat. If the biscuit sings, it is not. Because it's so short, but it suggests so many things about the world. Floating biscuits? No. Singing biscuits? Oh no, don't. Oh, the bot has a fan club. Excellent. Any suggestions for, other silly bot things it should do, of course, are welcome. Okay, we're done. Okay, that took 7 minutes. Note to self, that takes a long time. Okay, so now let's boot up the game. I'm just going to boot it in windowed mode, so OBS doesn't get super confused. Mimic biscuits, yes. Yeah, it's like a very it's in fact a very specific biscuits they've evolved to feed on air sailors. Okay, so we can go into the editor. This is being really slow. There we go. Indeed, yes. Hello, Tavish. The talk thing isn't really in my line of sight that well. Okay, let's add this thing. Well, that was loud. I'm just going to turn off the volume here. But yeah, look, that looks pretty good, I think. Okay, that bit here still looks a bit scribbled. But apart from that, you know, that's a creditable Portuguese man of war. Let's call it Bob. Now we can just see what it looks like under different light conditions. Yeah, that looks like one of them, right? I think I might get rid of this bridge here. I think we actually don't want this. I think that's not optimal. But apart from that, okay, now it's less good. You can see there's still some issues. I think I might need to make it less glossy. I'm not sure. It's mostly okay. This is just a squibbly bit here that needs cleaning up. And yeah, the horizontal and vertical lighting bits here kind of interact in weird ways. So I just need to have both of them visible, and I need to sort of, you know, clean that up a bit. You shouldn't really get these sort of crossings like here and here, but that's what happens when you do the lazy thing, which is what I did. Which is that I only did it layer by layer rather than doing all the layers simultaneously and making sure that they fit onto each other correctly. So I think now I just need to go over it again and fix all of that stuff up. However, my suggestion is that actually I don't do that now because it's incredibly boring. So we're going to sort of do the light version of this whole process, which is that we're going to do tentacles next, so we can make Bob actually destroy things. And that will be, you know, a nice sort of finished up thing where you can see sort of the creation process of a monster, rather than me boring you with like half an hour of me fiddling with individual pixels to make the shading look right. I mean, you can say if you want to have that, then you're weird. Okay. Oh yeah, and then like something like Dawn. Yeah, I think it needs work in practice. It still needs a bunch of work, but it's, you know, the basics as a like if I zoom out enough, then it looks good. So the basics are there. It just needs the details cleaning up. Yeah, cool. So yeah, let's add the tentacles because that's what we want, right? We want tentacles. Yes, class? Tentacles. Cool. Let's do that. And for that, we basically just need to create the tentacle segment, and then we need to add a whole bunch of information about what the tentacles look like, which we're basically going to grab off the squid and just edit. So you can see here, if we go to monsters 1 or something, here's a tentacle segment from the squid. And we might as well just pretty much grab that, but then get rid of the sucker. And of course, change the color. Paste. Okay, so anatomical correctness and all that. So one thing that's interesting is that they're sort of curled up. I don't think I can really do that with the current tentacle code. Another interesting thing is that they've got these tiny, tiny wormy bits here. So I might see if I can do those in another iteration as well. But I'm trying to figure out what the tentacles themselves actually look like, which is one of those things that's a bit difficult because they move around a lot. Oh yeah, here you can see like it's not that big usually. I mean, that's not a big one to be fair. They can actually grow fairly big, I think. A lot bigger than these, but not quite that size. It's sort of, from some of the pictures, right, it looks like there's sort of a darker or lighter and a lighter bit. Really weird. Yeah, I think what's going on, this is really interesting if annoying, is that if you look, there's like a central whitish bit with then these sort of blue blobs that are actually attached to it. That's fairly weird and complicated. But we can probably do something similar here, where if we say, well, okay, this is the central whitish bit. And then on top of it, let's just do this in a separate layer for now. We're going to have the blue blobs. Okay, I think also this needs to be shorter. It's going to have so many segments. Again, I'm mildly worried about what that will do to performance, but we'll find out. Just want to make sure it's centered. No anti-aliasing. This is pixel art. There and then like just make these a little bit wider. There's something like that. And I think, in fact, make these a little bit narrower yet. Well, we'll see what that looks like. I have my doubts, but yeah, and then we want these bits to be some kind of whitish color, probably the same one as is used here. So that's like cloth and uniforms. Yeah, I might also try maybe just slightly less, maybe verb sale, etc. instead. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Yeah, I might experiment with, oh dear, that's not symmetrical. Okay. Changing the color of the thing from like all suspendium to like a mixture or something, but we'll see. Okay, so here's that bit. Now we again need to give it a bump map. This time we're going to be sensible and keep all of the bump map layers active at the same time. So hopefully help a little bit with not making it look really weird. This is now way smaller stuff. So I'm pretty much just gonna have to go in here with a pixel brush and do it manually, but at least I can mirror it afterwards. Something like that. Again, we don't want it to be hyper regular. Yep. And we can actually take that. I used to know the shortcuts for this. Layer, transform, flip vertically. Well, actually not yet, because you also want the really lit bits. Actually, I don't think I want the really lit bits. I don't think I want it to be lit up that strongly. Okay, so just copy. No. One day. Copy, paste, layer, transform, flip vertically, la la la. There. Then the exact same thing. Copy, paste, transform, flip horizontally. There. There. Sorry, that glonking sound was me standing up. I've realised I haven't stood up for a long time. So, yeah. That's that done. Now at the vertical. Yeah, something like that. Oh, awesome. Let's just do this bit. Wow, can't see that, can I? Confusing. Right, now. So here, because it's a segment of a tentacle, I'm not actually doing the usual sort of curving down. Usually I'd sort of do this a bit, but I don't actually want it to look wobbly. It's just meant to be a smooth shape. Okay, so there. Now, boop. There. So that's a tentacle segment. So let's re-export this. And we export this. Okay, now let's start up by just giving it one tentacle. So, the way to do this, yeah, actually, let's leave it this big. Squid, blah, blah, blah. Tentacles. So I'm going to grab exactly one tentacle. It's a bit inefficient, actually. Well, you specify each tentacle individually, which I guess is nice in the sense that you can have a whole menagerie of different tentacles. It does mean there's a lot of repeated information. Okay, so the number of segments is probably going to be a bit bigger. Let's try 40. Base angle is so that's 270 degrees because it's pointing left, but we actually, I think that's right, yeah. So but we want to point down, so no, wait, that's less than, oh god, that's less than pi. Very confusing. Let's just set it to pi and see where that gets us. And positioning wise, it needs to be near the bottom and slightly to the right. So the thing is how tall again? 19. So let's put it at like 15 and like 3 or something. So the base X offset is 3, the base Y offset is 15. We'll leave all of these things. Alright, base length and tip length. So we're going to decrease this, but the tip length, they don't really taper very much, do they? Unlike squid tentacles, they don't taper at all. Okay. So no difference there. Yeah, I'm gonna make them a bit slower. Guess it's still snatch crew. Well, just where is its mouth? I don't think it has a mouth as such. It just sort of goes into its central mass. So X offset of 6. Y offset of like 16. And yeah, it does attack the hull, but like a bit less strongly, I guess. It does wave around. Socket direction actually doesn't matter here. Image length does matter. God knows why that's different from the length of the segment image. But I guess we'll find out. Okay, so the segment image is here. So that's Monsters 5. It's 16, 4, 16, 32, 64. This vertic flip version is the same thing because it doesn't have suckers on the one side or the other. image length. I think that's just how closely it should space them together. So we're going to set this to like 28. Yeah. I think we want the sound of that to be a bit higher than with the squid, but a bit more quiet. Who knows? You know, something like that. Why not? Here's some numbers. Let's see what happens. Let's put Bob back in. There we go. Bob now has a tentacle. Might need to be some work. I think there needs to be a lot of work about this tentacle. Well, it technically exists. So what we can see immediately is that, yeah, the gap's way too big. There. I think we can make that better by changing this value. Oh, maybe wait. Okay, let's make that more like 10, 10, 10, 10. The image length like 20. Numbers. And usefully, because that's just the data change, we can just reload the game data. We don't have to go out and in again. Yeah, you see, now it's a bit better. Yeah, now it looks like a solid thing. Now I think the problem now is that it's too short. So I think I want it to taper a tiny amount. It also doesn't look right at all, I think. It looks like a science fiction thing. So I think that will just need redoing. But the redoing can be done. But for now, let's just work on its sort of vague thing. So I'm going to say, actually, well, it's going to half its width by the end. And we're going to give it, what's it look like now? It doesn't want to be any bigger. No. Okay, so it's just going to need more segments. And we'll see how well the game handles a huge multi-segment thing. Okay, here's Bob. Now with a very huge curled up tentacle. And let's just put in an airship. This one looks yummy. And let's just see whether Bob actually eats it. Wow, well, the tentacle sure has some interesting behavior. Bloom, bloom. Okay, well, yeah, that worked. Okay, it's really fast. It does weird things. But fundamentally, it returns at like lightning speed, so that's a bit weird. But yeah, I like the way it sort of pulsates. I don't get why it moves quite that quickly. But you know, it's something. Okay, I'm just going to make it way slower, like by a factor of 10. Oh, I think it might move faster the more segments it has, basically. Because each segment can move a certain amount, so if it has many times more segments than a squid one does, yeah. Well, that was that for Bob. Bob flew in the wrong place. Let's try this one more time. The more edible and less. Just here, that's a pure food item of an airship. Oh yeah, I think it's also sticking out in the wrong way, isn't it? But no, yeah. We're getting there. Okay, what happens if we make it to give a base angle of 0? Wait, it will stick up the top, surely. Can you give it a base angle of like 1.6 or something? Might be better. One of the issues also is that because it's sort of hidden behind the actual image, it's a little bit unclear what's going on. Oh, I think it may need a bit more lift. Oh, well, that was nice. Okay, so it still needs a whole bunch of work with the details, of the like physics of it, but you can see how it's going to get somewhere. It doesn't seem to be an immediate performance problem. It's just going to need, yeah, I think replace that weird sort of alien-looking, in a bad way, appearance for the tentacle, clean up the lighting map, and yeah, just figure out how to make the tentacle positioning and movement and so on feel more like a giant jellyfish and less like some kind of thing. And we'll be done. So yeah, we're at least part of the way there. I know it would be nice if it died in a more, detailed way than just popping into a few dust particles. Well, we can do that. I think they're squid ink particles, actually, for what it's worth. Okay, so I think that's probably a pretty reasonable place to stop for now. Thank you.